Hello, and welcome to the inaugural episode of Talking Shop, a series of fun conversations with consummate concert artists, composers, and opera singers, one of whom I am really thrilled to introduce to you today, if you don't know her already, Tasha Koontz, dear friend of mine. And Tasha she debuted at the Met last fall. She has sung with the Opera Nacional de Chile, the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, and the really exciting news is she is going to present the world premiere of Sheltering Tree and with the Hawaii Opera Theater. And I'm going to let her tell you a little bit more about that before we proceed.
Yes, hi. Thanks so much for having me. So the Sheltering Tree, I am quite excited about as a Native Hawaiian soprano. There are not a lot of us around, and the Sheltering Tree will be an opera that's presented in both English and Hawaiian. So it's telling the story of the Hawaiian people with Native Hawaiian singers involved. So both me and Quinn Kelsey, who is sort of the other Native Hawaiian opera singer who's the darling of the opera world right now, are going to be doing that together in May of 2026. And I'm very thrilled with that. In case anybody's curious, that middle name that I use, Hokuau, that is my Hawaiian name. It means morning star. It was gifted to me by the elders in my family when I was a baby, and that's a fairly common practice for most Native Hawaiians. And uh, one of the fun things is that I'm actually also the first Native Hawaiian woman to sing at the Met. So that debut was a big debut.
It was indeed, and was so thrilled for you when that happened.
Thank you.
Um, I'm just really so excited about talking with you, and I want to start with a question that I'm going to ask every interviewee, and that is, what what does being an opera singer mean to you personally?
So being an opera singer, I think is uh, well, it's a huge part of my identity, of course. I don't know many singers for whom being a singer is not a part of who they are and how they identify. It is one of the hats that I wear, one of the many hats that I wear. And I think one of my favorite parts about being an opera singer is that it's a celebration of what human beings are capable of. Because we're up there with no microphones, we are projecting our voices and using just our bodies to create this art form, as opposed to so many of the other wonderful art forms that exist, with editing and amplification and filters and all of those things. Opera is just raw humanity. There's nothing extra. What you get is the humans that you see on the stage and the humans that are playing in the pit. And you get this one really beautiful, fleeting moment in time where, really, truly, unless you were there, you didn't get to really experience it. Even recordings don't quite do it justice. So I think it's one of the last sort of really beautiful live art forms that exists.
I couldn't agree with you more. Being an opera singer myself, it's just, opera tells the story of life. I mean, you have murder, you have envy, you have love, you have jealousy and suicide and joy and, humor, everything. I mean, what else could you ask for, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think it's such a celebration of sort of the extremes of humanity.
Yes.
There's nothing sort of mid-level about it ever. You're either, devastated or you're ecstatic. You're never just kind of content. Um,
That's
in
that's
the
what's so exciting about it, I think, too. It's just so thrilling to be part of that. So you've started this series on your Instagram that I really wanted to. I think it's absolutely fantastic. And one of I think the very first one you said is just tips and like the first thing is to start, and with practice, I guess. And that seems like such an intuitive thing that we don't think about it that often. But I find myself, whether I'm practicing piano or voice, sometimes, it's hard work. And sometimes I'm just like, okay, I have to go do that. And I know
Mhm,
it's going to pay off really big. It happens every time. I notice the difference in each practice session.
mhm.
And yet I still have to motivate myself to just actually start doing it. And then I get kind of swept up in it. So would you talk
Absolutely.
about that a little bit, please?
Yes, for sure. I started this series of things I've learned as a professional opera singer, partially because I wanted a way of sort of packaging together all of the things that I think about as an opera singer. And a lot of these things people will find they're not only singing related, they actually are also quite life related. I joke about this with my therapist all the time where I'm like, man, you're telling me all the stuff that I tell my students only with a singing lens. And she's like, "Mhm, yes." So I do think that one of the hardest things that we face as humans, particularly for the musician types, because I personally think that all musicians and artists are a little neurospicy in some way, whether it's diagnosed or not, that we just have a different lens through which we experience and view the world. So I find that for us, it's often really a challenge to get over that first hump of just starting. Whatever it is, the thing that you need to start, if it's answering emails, drafting a letter to an agent, practicing, all of the endless practicing that we need to do. Um, and the practice thing in particular, I find challenging because I think as a musician, as an artist, as a singer, the work is never finished. There's always more work to be done. And as singers, our voices change daily from moment to moment. So, really, truly, the work is never finished. So, that can often be quite overwhelming. And I find that if you can just start, you will usually feel better than when you started. That was even true today. I was about to teach a lesson to one of my students, and I was thinking to myself, like, oh, I'm so not in the mood or headspace to do this right now, because I had been consuming content about the world and it made me feel some kind of way. And luckily, this student is really lovely, and he's actually really taught me how to be a human and a teacher at the same time. And when we started, he was the first to say, I almost canceled today. And I said, I almost canceled today too. So let's see if we can make ourselves feel better. And wouldn't you know it, by the time we were done, we were both fired up and energized. And I was so happy that we hadn't canceled. And it was sort of that perfect example of, oh, just start the thing. You know, you're going to feel better at the end of it. Just see. And if we had both still felt awful, part of the way through that, I would have gone, hey, this is clearly not working for either of us. Why don't we put this on pause and let's pick it up in a day or two, and see when we're feeling better and have that be okay, you know?
Yeah. And
So
that's huge. I think being open to doing that is actually huge.
yes.
Yeah, yeah. I want to I just thought of something that I'd love to get some input from you on is
Sure.
let's talk a little bit go deeper into the practice thing.
Mhm.
This may sound very weird. I don't know if it's the anyway, I'll just put it out there, okay? So we all have these tips, practice
Yep.
tips that we hear from people. And we think, oh, that's great. And we'll write it down and we get in our practice session. And we're sometimes we just get too involved in just singing or playing the thing. And we
Mhm.
should be working on technique, but we
Yep.
kind of don't want to go there. And yet, that is just like peeling back the onion to all the deep joy and all the juicy stuff inside. But I know in my own experience, sometimes it just takes me a while to actually get to the point of applying what I've heard.
Yes.
Some weird thing that keeps me from doing that. I have no clue why. But it's so funny. And I don't know if other people can relate to this or not. But, then when I actually start implementing that thing, I'm like, oh my gosh, why didn't I start doing this ago?
Oh, yeah. Totally. I mean, I think the number one thing people tell me, as wearing my voice teacher hat, is, oh, I feel like I don't really know how to practice, or like, oh, I hate practicing. It's not fun. It's boring, blah, blah, blah. So this actually inspired me to do a whole workshop that's just about practice. That's actually still, the replay is up on my website, still for sale for anybody who wants to watch it and participate in it, because it's probably the most detailed I've ever gone into practice. I'm actually quite passionate about practice. And I think that there are some key things that we miss in the teaching of practice. So, one of those big things is that I really think that we have to separate um, skill building practice or technical practice from music learning practice. And of course, the two are going to intertwine at some point, but I think skill building is really thinking about how you are singing, whereas music learning is what you are singing or playing or whatever your instrument may be. Um, and I saw a video of a violinist recently that I wish I could remember his name, but and I wish that I had seen this before I taught that workshop, but it was a concept I loved, which is practice as perfectly as possible so that you can be imperfect in your performance.
Oh, I love that.
So, right? So, in other words, raise the threshold of the expectation of how you practice so you can lower the threshold of expectation for when you perform and take the pressure off of yourself, which is actually something I've been doing for years. I just didn't quite have the language for it in that simple of a way. But with practice, I find that when you get really deep into your technical work, it can actually be quite fun and quite satisfying. And one of the ways that I love to do that is to literally hack my brain. So I teach people to practice in such a way that they are really, truly celebrating all of their victories. That celebration triggers the production of dopamine in the brain. It makes you absorb the information faster and makes you actually want to come back and practice more later because you had a good time doing it. It's one of the really good components of habit building. And the other thing with practice is making your practice so that you actually have um, ways of measuring your progress. So, really having goal based practice rather than time based practice. I know I, as a kid, was taught, like, oh, you have to practice the piano for however long, 30 minutes, an hour, whatever the case may be. And the time is actually inconsequential. You have to practice for as long as it takes to do the thing that you're trying to do. And you have to know that you are not possibly going to accomplish everything you would love to accomplish in one piece of music in one day of practice. So you have to take something about that music, pick one, two, maybe three things to work on, and then work on those things. And then leave the rest for the next day and the day after that and the day after that. So that you're coming at it with an attitude not of, I'm going to get this whole piece perfect today. Impossible. I'm going to get this one aspect really well honed. So for my singing students, that might be something as simple as, I'm going to do my really boring lip trill sequence of doing like a 1-5-1 pattern, because all of my warm-ups are always very easy. Because again, I want you thinking about how you are singing, how your body is working, what you're doing versus the notes that you're singing. And your goal might be, I want to do 3 lip trills in a row where I take a totally silent breath every time before I sing. And that's it. That's your whole goal for that time of practice. If you get to your 3, great, make it a longer goal. Maybe that's what you do for the next time, or move on to your next goal.
Right.
But really clear, simple, measurable goals. And I find that that really helps with practice.
And
I don't
that's
actually know if that answered your question.
no, that did, and that sounds really doable. Which I think also going back to your IG series that you
Mhm.
started, maybe thinking about that, maybe having one small goal like that might help you get started and not,
Yes.
feel so daunted about, oh my gosh, I've got to do this and this and this today, and I've got to get to a certain
Yes.
point,
Oh,
which,
yeah.
yeah. And I can just see all of this building up into huge confidence in performance. Not that, I think a little performance anxiety is always good for us if it's,
Mhm.
kind of gets the adrenaline flowing.
Yeah.
But that there's that thing about performing that affects so many people, many more I think than let on. And
Yes.
this type of preparation to me would be a really great um, contributor to that confidence that we need when we go on stage.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And there are also ways to enhance your practice so that you're really practicing for performance,
Yeah.
practicing performing for
Yes.
your audience. Practice having people in the room, even if they're just imaginary people in your mind. Like when I go into an audition, I have people that I bring with me to every audition mentally. And they're all the people that I just know I could look at any moment in time and they would be beaming at me because they just think I'm the coolest thing since sliced bread. Um, and that really helps in those moments where I'm like, oh God, there are these strangers and they're looking at me or they're not looking at me. And
Yeah.
here I
Yeah.
am trying to perform my little heart out. So I perform then for the people that I have brought into the room with me and that I have practiced having in the room with me. So that it makes the act of performing less unique, honestly, because
Yeah.
it's the uniqueness of performing that helps to create those feelings of anxiety or excess energy. But I also have like so many things I could say about performance anxiety
We could
and
go on all
and
day. I
things
think
like
that's,
that.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
great. All right, confession. I do have a couple questions here.
great.
I'd love to know about other aspects of your life that kind of filter into your artistry and how these, how exactly do these activities contribute to what you do?
Yeah, so I think the at the core of being an artist is being a human. So and artistry is really expressing that humanity through a particular medium. So the more of a whole person you are, the better of an artist you are. So everything that we do in our lives informs our artistry, from the media we consume, our moral compass, ethics, things that are happening in the world, hobbies that we love, our personal relationships, all of those things impact artistry. And of course, I think most artists find themselves getting really sort of tunnel visioned into whatever it is that they're doing. And at some point or another, remember that they have to be a whole human.
Yeah.
I think that tunnel vision really comes into play, particularly in, conservatory programs, things like that, where it's just music, music, music all the time, or whatever art that it is that you're doing. Um, but some of the practices that I've been doing in my life have been um, I think that my teaching really informs my artistry quite a bit. I find helping other people perform more or better or find their own singing voices, it keeps me very grounded in my own singing work, in that I actually really love to work with amateur singers, um, people who are just singing for the sheer joy of it with no other expectations on themselves. And they get to have all these really huge victories that we often forget about as professionals, I think, because the expectation is for us every time we open our mouths, it's going to be beautiful. That's sort of the baseline. It's going to be good, it's going to be beautiful, it's going to be reliable. And that's not necessarily the case for your average person, although I think everybody can sing and can sing beautifully, really, truly.
Yeah.
Um, so being a teacher for sure informs my artistry. I also use a very sort of whole system, whole person technique in my teaching, where I want to know how you are doing as a human being.
Mhm.
And not that I try to be your therapist necessarily, although I do also moonlight as a life coach. Many of my students have sort of asked for that over the years, and so I finally made it into an actual offering that I do.
That's
Um,
amazing.
because having systems that work for your life and ways to approach problems as they come up is really important.
Mhm.
Your mental health hugely impacts your
Mm.
artistry, um, partially from a physiological aspect of that. Your vagus nerve, the thing that actually triggers your fight or flight response, literally runs through your larynx. Yeah,
Wow.
exactly.
Never
Most
knew
people
that.
don't know that.
That's
Yes.
amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've started incorporating a lot of nervous system work into my teaching also, and a lot of whole body somatic work. I mean, the more I learn about how the body actually works and implement those things, the better and the more reliable it is, because you literally always have your body with you. It is the most common denominator of anything that we do. So if you are making yourself concerned with creating safety within your body and within yourself, and knowing that, like, if I do this with my body, I get this result, you have something that's actually trustworthy as a technique, as opposed to just uh, trying to, sort of throw darts in the dark and see if it works. Um, I also have recently started working as an intuitive healer. So incorporating energy work into my life and my practice and my own personal life as well. And again, I find that the sort of whole mind, body, spirit approach works quite well for me as an artist. I am not necessarily saying that everybody must or should, but I do think taking care of all of the parts of you makes you a much better artist.
Well, and that just makes total sense because, there are things that can throw you off. Things come out of left field. You never know what life is going to present, to you.
Very truly.
And we are emotional beings, and we have emotional reactions to those things. So you know, how do we use that? I don't
Mhm.
want to say how do we compartmentalize that because I
Right.
think that is not a good idea, but how do we use that to enrich our artistry? And
Yeah.
I love when you talk about, recognizing that we are full human beings and understanding that each aspect of our lives really plays into our artistry.
Oh, absolutely. I think some of the best performances that I've ever given have actually been when I have allowed myself to be fully myself in
Yes.
whatever state I've been in that day. I mean, if you had told me several years ago that I would ever have been able to give sort of a tear-filled performance of a favorite aria of mine, I would have thought that was crazy. Like, I couldn't sing and cry and do all those things at the same time. Not to mention, like, how selfish of me to have this emotional experience myself in
Mm-hmm.
front of an audience when really it connects people together.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, I can just imagine how magnetic that is when you're on
Yeah.
stage.
Absolutely.
Oh my
That
gosh.
real true vulnerability
Yeah.
always speaks the most truthfully to the audience
Mhm.
and connects them together. And I really do think that music, and particularly singing, of course, because it's my medium, um, is about connection. I think that my purpose on this earth in this life is connecting people better with each other and with themselves. And sometimes when I'm singing, it's like I can practically feel and see those connections with the audience. You know when you have them.
Absolutely, you do. I've
Mhm.
felt that myself,
Yeah.
and it's interesting because I'm thinking, singing is one of the things that makes us most vulnerable on stage, I
Mhm.
feel. And yet it also, I think, brings us the greatest connection and that yields the greatest joy. I mean, I can tell when I feel like I have that audience in the palm of my hand. And it's not, for me, it's because I feel that connection and I feel like maybe there's something actually giving them that they couldn't get anywhere else. And it's just the
Absolutely.
sharing of myself with
Mhm.
them. And that it's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
It
Absolutely.
really is. I mean, I think we're sort of turning the corner as a society around this, but I think we're coming out of an era where displaying emotion or even acknowledging or feeling your own emotion was sort of undesirable,
Yeah,
uncouth, not proper, something like that. And I think that building those kind of connections, showing that kind of vulnerability gives the audience permission to actually feel all of their feelings and to have an emotional experience. I mean, some of my favorite moments are when I've had people come up to me after a performance and say, "Oh, my partner dragged me to this. I didn't want to come." And then was in tears and I wasn't expecting that, and I'm like, "Yes, that is the
absolutely.
thing."
Yes, yes,
Uh,
yes.
yeah, and it's one of the things that makes me feel like singing and music are kind of the closest thing that we have to real life magic. Like, we affect
Absolutely.
actual change to people in real time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, What gives you the most joy as an opera singer, and what are some of the most challenging things that you have to deal with?
Oh, I think the thing that gives me the most joy as an opera singer is the thing we were just talking about, that
Exactly.
feeling of big
Kind of a
connection.
redundant question.
I
Sorry.
know, no, that's okay. It's not only connection with the audience though, like I love rehearsal. I love rehearsal so much. It's the payoff for all of the hours of practice by yourself
Yes. Yes.
is the getting to get in rehearsal and collaborate and play with your colleagues, and have that really cool, intimate experience with this group of people that then gets to be put on the stage for the audience and then build the connection with the audience. But I think the collaboration, oh, it gives me the greatest joy.
Mhm.
Um, and oh, the challenges, things that keep me from feeling like I can connect with people.
Yes.
So
Okay.
moments of feeling unsafe, whether that's physically unsafe or emotionally unsafe, because unfortunately both have happened, in the rehearsal room or on stage. It is part of, nothing's going to be perfect. It's part of the human experience. Learning how to overcome those moments, and continue. Those are really the challenging parts, or feeling like my body is just not cooperating with me and not doing the thing that I want it to do and that I'm asking it to do, in the moment, and kind of having to fight through that and do it anyway. Now, luckily for me at this point, I'm at the point where even when I feel like my body is not cooperating, I can go back and I can listen to a recording later and go, huh, that still sounded pretty good. Um, you know, and well, I will have been, my dear close friends will have heard me lament and bemoan and say, "Oh, I just felt like it sounded awful and like it felt bad and I just didn't get to do all the things that I wanted." And then they're like, "You're dumb. Go listen to the recording. You sound great." And it makes me really grateful for technology that I can actually like fairly instantaneously hear what has happened, be a
Absolutely.
little kinder to myself in
Yes.
this moment.
Yes. Yes.
So that's
You
still
are human. You are human yourself.
exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So now I'm learning to approach those situations with knowing that it's probably fine. I probably still sound fine, even if it doesn't feel like what I want it to feel like.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, just you are also at the point where your technique is developed well enough that that's something you can count on even in those times,
Mhm.
right? Is that
Yeah,
correct? So,
absolutely.
so even though, I think our instrument is different. I'm also a pianist, and that's part of me. It's an extension of me, but
Yep.
my voice is me. That's
Yeah.
inside, and my body is changing every day, and it's different.
Yes.
So all of that to deal with, but the technique, and that goes back to, again, to one of our first topics, which is practicing.
Mhm.
So I think we can have confidence in knowing that if we do the things, even the things that are challenging and hard in practice to develop that technique, that's going to be something else we can count on in performance.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, I think, we throw around this word of technique and it makes it sound like a much fancier thing than it really is.
yeah.
Technique is just habits. That's it.
I love that. I'm
Whether
so
good
glad you
or
said
bad.
that.
Yeah. Technique is just the habits that you build in the practice room.
Yeah, yeah.
And some of them work really well, and some of them don't work so well. And it took me studying with a really fantastic coach that I love very much. Her name is Kate Conklin, and she has sort of changed my whole perspective on what voice technique is. So, as I'm working with my students and working with myself these days, I think that good singing technique is simply being able to spontaneously accommodate the needs of my body and voice on any given day, in any given moment, within the bounds of reality, of what is actually happening.
Wow.
Yes, it's not chasing after some, I need to do this the correct way. It's work with your body as it is working in the moment and constantly updating your technique and your habits to fit what's happening with your body so that you can do all of the things with your voice. I don't restrict myself to only singing opera. I sing a lot of things. I sing pop, I sing jazz, I sing music theater. And I think you should be able to make a wide variety of sounds. There's nothing inherently better about operatic technique versus pop technique. They both require different things.
Yeah.
Um, and it's really just knowing what those differences are
Mhm.
and approaching any style of singing with a lens of vocal longevity and um, optimum coordination of the body so that you can go from one style to the other without it causing you harm
That's
and get to
amazing.
play.
So there's just more and more and more and more and more. That's what I love about being an artist. There's always more. It's just,
Yes.
it doesn't stop. It's always developing.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear, well, I wanted to ask you if you have a favorite role, and
Oh,
if so,
yes.
what makes it your favorite?
Oh man. I mean, my current favorite role is for sure Tosca. I love her. I
Oh
could
my
sing
gosh.
her every day. I love the drama of it, and
Yes.
I love the challenge of it, frankly. And not only the vocal challenge of it, but the physical challenge and the acting challenge of it.
Yes.
I had to confront my own fears about uh wondering if I could be really physical with my body and still make beautiful sounds. Can I get thrown to the floor and sing a high C?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
turns out I can. Um,
And
and
I loved the video that you shared of you, doing the backward fall and
yes.
talking about how scary that was. That was
Oh,
amazing.
yes.
Yeah.
Like, I have a real fear of falling, and I find it quite ironic that, of course, now Tosca is my favorite thing to do, but by the time I got to the point in performance, and by the time I got to the end of my first run of Tosca, so that video that you're talking about, which has now gotten 2.6 million views, by the
Oh
way.
my gosh, I love it.
That's more than the whole population of the city of Chicago.
Oh,
Um,
that's just wonderful.
I know.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So that was from my role debut of Tosca, my house debut at the Opera Nacional de Chile. And by the time I got done with those performances, I loved that moment of the backwards fall because
Yes.
it was sort of like I'm done. I get to just rest and let it go and know that I was going to be caught. And there was this really beautiful thing where every night, once I had fallen, because I was essentially doing what was a trust fall backwards onto this gigantic poof. I mean, this thing was like 10 feet wide and like 4 feet thick. Like I was not going anywhere. It was very safe. And there were stagehands making sure that it was in the right place every night. And it got to the point where every night after I would do this fall, one of the stagehands would always grab onto my arm, which I found to be so beautiful and actually makes me a
Oh,
little teary-eyed when I think about it because it's
yeah.
like, you did it, you're here, it's okay. You did it.
That's
And I
incredible.
needed that. And I didn't know how much I needed that until the first time he did that. And I was like, oh, thank you. Like, I'm okay. I'm good.
Yeah.
Um, and, the adrenaline rush from that is huge. I mean, the first time I did it, my whole body was shaking.
I just
And it didn't stop
imagine.
shaking for a good
My
20
gosh.
minutes
Yeah.
after.
Yeah.
And then the
Then you're
crash
ready to do it
after that.
again.
Yeah, exactly. And then the crash after that was enormous. Um,
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I feel like we could just talk on and on all day. There's so much here. So we have to have you back a later time.
yes,
I wanna ask you two more things.
sure.
One about the upcoming premiere, just
Mhm.
maybe a couple of nuggets about, I mean, I know you've talked about this a little bit already. Just dig deep. Tell us something really personal about what this means to you. I know, the Hawaiian
Yeah.
opera singer, all of that, but can you go a little deeper with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this premiere, it feels like something I've been sort of manifesting for years, because I've been looking for a way to sort of integrate my own identity into my performing world, in that I'm, part Native Hawaiian and part not Native Hawaiian, of, sort of Irish and English and all of that stuff. And I've done a lot of diving into my heritage in many ways. Like I have Mayflower people on one side, and then I have Native Hawaiian people on the other. and then feeling like all of that is culminated in me. And of course, now I'm steeped in this very, European Western art form of opera, which is quite different than Native Hawaiian singing, even though music is such a part of that culture. So having this opportunity to sort of really connect in this beautiful way with my heritage, I find so exciting. Partially also because I have relatives, distant past relatives that lived through this story that we're telling. So this particular story, The Sheltering Tree, it's about King Kamehameha III, and sort of the first bid for sovereignty worldwide. And later, when the overthrow with Queen Liliuokalani was happening, like I have a several times great grandmother who was one of her ladies in waiting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and her husband was a manservant for King Kalakaua until he died. So it feels like this beautiful, like, I don't know, like I get to embody potentially one of my ancestors. I mean, it's not
Exactly. This is part of your
exactly
family.
direct.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 But it's probably the closest I will get to that sort of embodiment of a real life history that's part of me and my heritage and where I come from. And growing up, I was born in Hawaii, but we moved when I was very small to Washington State. So I didn't get to grow up on the islands. I was very separated from that and went through this whole time of going, am I Native Hawaiian enough to claim that as part of my heritage? And I think a lot of people go through that. And I am very proud of that part of myself. It was very much part of my identity forever growing up. So I'm really grateful to actually get to spend a month in Honolulu, working on this piece and um, in the preparation of it, get a better understanding of the Hawaiian language. I didn't grow up
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
Hawaiian in my household, other than the occasional words that would come out every once in a while from my mother, and really have this opportunity to represent a part of myself. And in the show, I do play the one Hapahale character, so the one like mixed Native Hawaiian and English character in the show. So it really feels like it's perfect for me.
Wow. Wow. I can
Yeah.
hardly think of a more beautiful way to make that connection.
Yeah.
That's got to be, there's to be good. Wow. That's just overwhelming. I'm so happy for you that you're getting
Thank
to do
you.
this. Yeah. And this
Yeah.
is May of 26, right?
Yes, May of 26th. It's the first weekend in May.
And you're going to, of course, let us know closer to and post
Yes.
about it, all those good things.
Yes, the
So I
best
know,
way to find out about things that I do is to follow me on social media. I'm really good about posting things that are coming up.
yes, she is. I can attest to that.
Yes, exactly. I do also have a mailing list, people can sign up for on my website at tashakoonts.com. And I am trying to be better about making sure that I send out newsletter notifications for things, but I'm generally good about sending them out for bigger things like this.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. So you're an opera singer, you're a voice teacher,
Mhm.
you're a life coach. What else
Yep.
did I miss?
Intuitive healer.
Intuitive healer.
Yeah,
Okay.
energy worker.
So people
All
can
those
come
things.
to your website and learn all about these different ways that they can work with you and also how to contact you. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, they can. I have
Awesome.
a little menu of all of my services that sort of briefly discusses all of the things that I do on my website in all of the various facets of the things that I do. I also kind of go into more detail on Instagram, especially. I'm trying to open up much more about all of those practices there. So I love to connect with people via social media. So it's a really fun way to do that.
Well, it has been so delightful to have you. I don't think I could have picked a better person for my inaugural episode for
Thank
this
you.
series. This has been Talking Shop. I hope you'll join us again next month, and we'll see you then.